You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight is episode 135. We're back to our numericals after doing our two BlizzCon specials for our podcast network. So, on tap for tonight, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch. We'll take a look at Overwatch Esports, including the upcoming season of Overwatch Contenders, which is about to kick off, maybe? I mean, we're still waiting on a couple of details out of NA, but that's besides the point. We'll also see what's buzzing within the community with this week's hot community topics, and there's a lot of spice there, especially out of a certain Academy team trying to call out an expansion team, all that good stuff. And of course, you know, we got not one but two patches to talk about tonight, because not only do we have a new PTR patch that was deployed earlier yesterday, but we also had the Ashe patch drop this week as well. But before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight for our live show on Twitch. And as always, thank our repeat listeners. So, you know, it's been a while since I've been on the show, and as an update, yes, in fact, I did pull Slambo out from the abyss when I was in Vegas, but I did not, however, walk away unscathed, as in doing so, my hair just changed colors. Like, you guys can probably tell by now. So, I had a risk. I took it. I got my soulmate Slambo back. But we are back into the swing of things here on the network. And with that being said, let me introduce you to my co-host on Heroes Never Die. Joining me again, as always, is Edinar. And Ed, you know, tonight, we got a lot of spice. You know, we got Toronto Esports drama. We got the Fran kind of uninstalling the game and threatening to quit Overwatch League. We got franchises blatantly stealing colors for other franchises yet again. But how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am doing good. You know, like you talked about Ashe being out. You know, Ashe, my new main. Mm-hmm. I am in love with Ashe and Bob. So doing well there. I did not go to BlizzCon or Vegas, like stated on the previous one, but I will be going to Vegas in like 2.5 weeks. Woo. So I'm okay with that. So I've been playing a lot of Overwatch, a lot of WoW. Still raiding over there and still starting to play a little bit more Hearthstone, but man, there's a lot of OWL or Overwatch League news that came out in the past week. Mm-hmm. Like we joked about this pre-show. More news came out in the past week than it came out at BlizzCon.
100%.
Like, yeah. So there's a lot to go over. So we should probably just get right into it, so we can start making fun of people.
Because if there's one thing that we're good at on this show, it is absolutely pointing the finger and making fun of people. And there's a lot of finger pointing going around here lately, especially from certain teams out there. But before we get into, you know, all the spice and drama out of the competitive scene, let's jump into the general Overwatch news. So Jinx, you know, they may not have had, like, the biggest presence at BlizzCon this year because they did not have a booth, but they are gearing up for the holiday season, which I'm sure you're going to be ecstatic about because we got some new Overwatch-related merchandise that was added to their lineup. So this lineup features some new premium tees. They released another wave of their ultimate zip-up hoodies. We got a couple of new snapback hats. We got some scarves and a couple other things. So, you know, I was kind of like browsing through their site earlier, and if there's one thing I'm going to buy out of anything, out of this new crop of merchandise, it is 100% that Nut Yada t-shirt, the Zenyatta one. The On the Cracker one. That's definitely going to be one that's going to be, you know, just in my general wardrobe. I need to have that one. Outside of that, like, really nothing was really pulling me in. You know, I do have a couple of the ultimate zip-up hoodies. You know, I have the Mercy one. I picked up the carbon fiber Diva one that's available at Hot Topic. But, like, you know, I'm a huge Farah fan, but, like, I'm not overly impressed by the Farah hoodie. But, you know, they did release a new snapback hat that does match the Ultimate Mercy hoodie, so that might be one that I'll be picking up. But in regards to this new merchandise, it ranges anywhere from like $20 to $60, depending on what you're getting. But is there anything out of this current crop of merchandise that you're seeing that you're maybe thinking about picking up here?
I mean, you said the only right answer. In like the Omni Cracker premium T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So the Nut Zada is actually pretty cool. I don't like the Tracer one, the Jingle Tracer. Not a fan of that. I do like some of the Ultimate hoodies, but I don't know if I'll get one of them. I don't know if any of them really stick out to me that I really, really want them. So yeah, if I'm getting anything, I'm getting the Nut Zada. Nuts and however you said it.
Yeah, my frames are dropping a little bit, guys. Hopefully it is going to stabilize. Because I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting back to normal. It dropped there for like half of a second, and then it's moving back. But yes. So lately, you know, we just finished up Halloween not too long ago, and you know we got to see more merchandise made exclusively for the holidays. So you know, for Halloween, you know, you and I were talking about like the Funko Pop line and how they introduced some of the Halloween Terror skins that were featured on the Funko Pop line. Do you think we'll be getting, you know, something similar for that for the Winter Wonderland in those lines as well?
We better. If they get them for Halloween, we have to get them for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's probably, and this is me being, you know, the Christmas freak that I am, that it's one of those things where Christmas is generally a bigger deal than Halloween, all around. And it's probably one of the most popular skins event that they have planned. So it makes sense to do something like the Nutcracker Zenyatta. You know, you could even do Beach Bod McCree, because I believe that's a Christmas one too. So like Roadhog as Rudolph,
mm-hmm.
Even Torbjorn Santa. Like, there's so many options that they have. So I'm really hoping they do, but I feel they would have announced it by now. Just because it's starting to get to that Christmas season where people are advertising Christmas stuff. So if we don't see anything in the next week, I don't think we will.
But, like, I remember when they were talking about the Halloween stuff, it was actually, like, during the event itself. So, you know, it might still be a couple of weeks before we actually hear about the actual merchandise news, if they are going to be branching out more, specifically for the holiday event. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Obviously, you know, if they're coming out with more merchandise, we'll definitely be talking about it on the podcast. But we do need to jump into the new patch that was deployed on the PTR here yesterday, which is Wednesday, November 14th. And this one brought quite a few different hero updates that we need to talk about. And they also have, you know, a pretty decent undocumented change in regard to skins, which we'll definitely be touching up on as well. So first up, let's talk about some of the hero balance changes. And we'll start with Bastion, everyone's favorite PTSD Omnic. So the configuration recon ammo was increased from 25 to 35. And then they also, for the configuration sentry, for the weapon spread, they decreased that by up to 33% while firing. So the spread change when you're in sentry basically is going to make Bastion more effective at farther ranges. And then, like, the minimum spread will start about after, like, 2 seconds of continuous fire. And then, like, let's say you just stop firing altogether, you'll kind of, like, go back to the maximum spread around, like, 0.3, 0.4 seconds of not being active overall. But, like, across the board, like, Bastion, you know, it's been a while since Bastion's been, you know, his really OP, you know, shield in front state of the game. And, like, I feel like no matter what they do with this character, when it comes to the high levels of play, you're still not really going to be seeing Bastion. Bastion is still more of the, maybe like a golden below, maybe DPS pick, maybe not necessarily like a troll pick, but against a team that does tend to stack a lot, or if they run shield heavy, Bastion is still going to be a good fit, and having a little bit more of a concise spread for him will maybe see a little bit more of play, but I feel like this was more to make it so he's not as easy to deal with, like, when he's staying still, because, when you're in that sentry mode, you are pretty much a sit and duck at that point, because you can't really move unless you actually, deconstruct yourself back into recon mode, and then, walk around. So it's gonna make it a little bit easier for him to, maybe put up a little bit more of a fight in that retrospect, but all in all, like, I'm not expecting huge changes out of the Bastion camp, with this upcoming change to him. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, all right, for starters, the recon ammo increase from 20 to 35, it's useless. Like, that's just a nothing change. It means, yeah. So the weapon spread, they did this something similar to this with Soldier 76 a while back. I remember they did something with his spread, and it really did make a difference, at least in my mind. And at the time, it didn't make any big difference. Like, Bastion's still not going to be competitive. Like you said, maybe gold and below, where people don't know how to counter properly against the Bastion. It's just, he's still going to be super counterable. Basically going to have niche spots where, you're talking, protect the president, or the boat, the pirate ship on Junkenstein. Certain maps like that, this changes nothing about him. He is one of those characters that probably needs to be viable, needs a pretty massive rework at this point to make him viable. So sadly, we'll probably get into that soon.
Yep, and when you kind of think of the Bastion of old, he was pretty much the definition of cancer. But if you ask anyone nowadays who the definition of cancer is, look no further than Brigitte, because I don't know if you've been on Twitter at all, like, within the past couple of weeks, but there's been, like, this movement that has been happening with the hashtag Delete Brig.
Delete Brig.
That has been in full swing within the community, and people are not happy, but maybe, just maybe, there will be a small glimmer of hope with this movement, as some changes are coming to Brigitte on the PTR that was introduced, and it revolves around her Shield Bash. So, Shield Bash will no longer travel or stun targets through barriers, so Reinhardt's, they can have a little bit of a sigh of relief, but, like, here's my issue with this. It feels kind of like a weird fix to me. So, like, you kind of look at it like, okay, so shields are now able to block a stun. But, like, her movement continues to push her forward, right? It's pretty much the same case with, like, the Doomfist Rocket Punch. So, like, I don't feel like this is necessarily the best way to kind of lower Brigitte's overall effectiveness. Like, maybe they need to make her more of an actual healer rather than having her be more of a peeler for her team, which she currently is right now, because she basically just, sunlocks you, or, plays the threat against any, flanker, basically. The Tracer, Fear Monkler, or however you want to describe it. But, like, I feel like as a main tank, it might be a little bit better as a Reinhardt player, but, Winston nowadays, especially, with the introduction of Ashe, like, it's still going to be pretty rough as a main tank character, even despite having to, not worry so much about getting stunned from the Brigitte herself.
Yeah, now, you did say that her momentum carries her through the shield. And there was a video, I saw it on Twitter today, people on the PTR. Now, if you're far enough away from the shield, when you bash, you will go through it. Mm-hmm. If you're up close and you bash, the shield stops you. So okay. I'm assuming that's a bug. Like, I'm assuming because it just seems weird that if you're 2 feet away and your shield bash, you go through. If you're up right next to it, it stops you. That just seems like it's a bug right now. So it could stop you. Now, this is going to do wonders for Reinhardt, I think, because gone are the days of the combo. Like, the most prevalent combo I've seen with her is she shield bashes Reinhardt to get a shield down, and then your Reinhardt slams and just takes out, like, it's just like a quick bash slam, 3-4 kills because everyone was behind the shield. It takes out that combo, which is nice. I don't think, like you said, with the introduction of Ashe, I don't think this matters at all to it doesn't make Winston more effective at all. This is strictly something that is going to benefit mainly just Reinhardt and other Baguettes, like, so Baguette versus Baguettes type of thing. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's not enough. It's just not. I do think they need to make her more healer focused, like you said, and less of a, I'm going to go in and I can 1v1 and 1v2 anyone in the game as a healer. Like, that's just not how it should be. So this is a good start. I want them to just get rid of her stun altogether.
I 100% agree. Like, I feel like that would be the next step that they might look into. But, like, you know, we're at a point now where once it's been introduced to the game, I really feel like, especially with abilities, it would be hard to just flat out say, you know what, we're just gonna completely remove it. Like, I feel like if anything, like, they might replace it, you know, because we have seen other abilities get moved either from an ultimate to an ability, or, you know, Scatter Arrow probably being the best example of this because they just retooled it to be Storm Arrow. So, you know, maybe they could do something else with her shield. But a lot of people have issues with Shield Bash, and, you know, regardless of this change, it's not going to slow the delete Brig movement that we have been seeing on the social media, on just in game, with a lot of people using that as their battle tag, and of course on the forums, you know, all the good places. But you know, Brigitte isn't the only one getting a little bit of a tune-in that you know, really doesn't feel good to play against, because we got to talk about Doomfist, who is another person that's been causing a lot of havoc in some of the compositions that we have been seeing lately, outside of your personal favorite, Triple Tank, Triple Support. But with Doomfist, they were looking at his Ryzen Uppercut and his Seismic Slam. So with the Ryzen Uppercut, the loss of air control duration has been lowered to 0.6 seconds, which is down from 3 seconds, so drastic shift there. And then with Seismic Slam, they reduce a maximum range from 20 meters to 15 meters. Okay, so for one, the change to the loss of air control duration, thank God, because before it was just way too easy to just be able to knock people off of the map with your uppercut. And, you know, as someone that does like to play a lot of Pharah, like, if I get uppercutted by a Doomfist, I feel 100% useless, because it just completely messes with where you are. It displaces you a lot. And, you know, it's just one of those things, you know. Team 4 basically looks at things like, okay, well, is this fun to play against? And that definitely was not fun to play against. The Seismic Slam one is, I feel like it'd be more of trying to fine-tune, like, Doomfist's, like, escapability, or when it comes to his engages. Because right now, he can basically kind of just, like, come and go as he pleases, so this is going to bring that down a little bit. So all in all, like, I'm pretty happy with the Doomfist change. And, you know, hopefully this will mean that I won't have as many environmental deaths on certain maps in the game when I am going up against a Doomfist player.
Yeah, I mean, these are welcome changes to Doomfist. I think Doomfist, I don't think he's overpowered. I'm one of the few who don't think Doomfist is overpowered. Is he annoying? Very much so. But I do not think he's overpowered, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with Doomfist quickly enough. Like, he relies on surprise attacks, really, like, because you're just not seeing it come. He's coming flying from across the map, and you don't realize it. So by changing the seismic slam and stuff like that, he can jump on you a little slower. You can see things coming a little better. And I'll talk about this when we get to Ashe. I think Ashe is actually a pretty good counter to Doomfist. It doesn't quite seem like it, but she really is. Because, and I'll just say this now, is Doomfist has one way to engage, and he has to use all his abilities to engage from a distance. And if that doesn't work, if his engage doesn't work, then he's kind of out of the fight for a little bit. So with her shotgun knockback on Doomfist, he uses all his movement ability to get in, and Ashe just boops him hella back. He's out of the fight. He literally has to just run in, and he's not effective that way. So it's one of those things where I think you're going to start seeing less and less Ashe, less and less Doomfist because of Ashe. At least that's my hope. And less goats.
I certainly hope so. And in regards to Doomfist, I agree with you. I feel like right now I don't think he's as good as a lot of people think he is. I feel like he's just in the current position that he is in because of the current meta. It does promote a lot of Doomfist play. So once the meta shifts, I would imagine we'll see a lot less of Doomfist here in the near future. But taking a look at the next hero, getting a little bit of a balance update, we have McCree. So, we just had some pretty recent McCree changes, with them lowering the cooldown of his role. And now they're taking a look at his Peacekeeper, primarily his alternate fire, which is Fan the Hammer. So they are tweaking the damage, increasing it from 45 to 55. And Ed, I remember a time in Overwatch when it came to McCree play, when it was basically, fan the hammer, roll fan the hammer, and then the tank would die. And that was basically it. I don't think we're going to get back to that point, even with a lowered cooldown on, the overall roll. But do you feel like this is going to open up more possibilities when it comes to maybe a quicker time to kill for McCree, or do you see this shaping up a different way for him?
The thing is I think this change is well needed for McCree, and without a certain other character just getting put into the game, I think McCree would have definitely seen a lot more play. He could have used this 6 months ago. Because now he's going to be able to be way more effective against tanks. You have Roadhogs, Reinhardts, Winston, Zaryas, all of them. You stun, fan the hammer, and even though it only goes from 45 to 55, that's what, if you hit all, I think 6 of the bullets, that's an extra 60 damage done right there. If my math is right. Yeah, my math is right. 6 times 10, 60. I'm an accountant, folks. But yeah, I mean, he could have really used it, but Ashe negates the need for McCree. She just does. McCree's always been, people love him and he has maps, but he's never really been effective in a meta in a while. And now we're getting too many characters that are too similar of a playstyle who do more damage and are more effective and have better kits than, the role that McCree has is utterly useless. It's not a movement ability compared to, at the beginning of the game, it was a movement ability. But so many other people got movement abilities in the game that it's just kind of here he can roll 4 yards. That's about it. He's another one that's up there for a pretty decent rework sometime soon to get him viable. But I do like the changes because I think he could do a little bit better to counter goats when he can stun, fan the hammer, and probably kill a tank that way. So we'll see. We'll see how he does, but I'm not thinking that it's going to be drastic enough to make him part of the meta.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate too, because really the only time we saw like a big increase in McCree play was like when Sombra was introduced into the meta. That was really like one of the few times you actually saw McCree. We still see him a fair amount in the Chinese scene in contenders, because that's pretty much their go-to hero of choice when it comes to the DPS. But outside of that, it's kind of been few and far between. And he's not the only hit scan hero to be getting some changes on the PTR. We also have to take a look at Soldier 76, specifically when it comes to his ultimate Tactical Visor. So Tactical Visor will no longer make Helix rockets auto-target enemies. Now, you and I, we talked a little... very briefly about this earlier. Yeah. So right now, when it comes to Tactical Visor, your Helix does lock on, but the problem is, a lot of people are moving, which would cause your Helix rocket to miss if you're using it during your Tactical Visor. So this is basically just going to allow you to freely aim your rockets, while still being... auto-aiming using your primary fire, since that is basically the whole point of your Tactical Visor in the first place. So, for me, this is a welcome change. It will hopefully mean that my time to kill, at least when my ultimate is up, is going to be quicker, because I'm not going to be missing so many rockets as I would prior. So this is a very welcome change, and, I'm hoping that with all these changes coming to the hit scan heroes, that it's going to bring them more to the forefront, because it's been a while since we've actually seen hit scan in the meta outside of, just Widowmaker, which has normally been the case when it comes to the pro scene. And, I mean, really, like, you can't really say that's too much of a surprise, just because, that between damage boost and just being able to hit headshots, the time to kill is a lot narrower compared to just, say, a McCree or a Soldier 76.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about this. You can change. I considered it a nerf. And here's my reasoning behind that is the majority of people probably play gold and below in ranked, or don't play ranked at all. So they're not, when they hit their Tactical Visor, they're not being like, okay, well, I'm going to keep firing and then I'm going to aim this over here while I'm getting auto aim. Like, and that's what this kind of is forcing you to do. It's kind of like, okay, your primary fire is going to lock on, and your alternate fire, which used to lock on, even though they could avoid it, is now you have to aim it. Like, people don't have that coordination at a lot of levels to do stuff like that.
Okay, so you're basically just saying it's come down to lack of, like, trying to think how I should describe this, target prioritization when it comes to some players.
Yes, and then it's the simple fact that, like, when you hit Tactical Visor, you're not aiming. Like, you're facing, Soldier in the right areas, but you're not like, okay, I have to aim at this person's head, aim at this. You're kind of just firing at everything. And then when you add into that, okay, now you have to also aim your Helix rocket. I don't think people are going to use their Helix rocket, which is kind of a damage decrease, because Helix rocket, when it connects, does a hefty amount of damage. Now, in higher levels, this is obviously, it's going to be better. In pro levels, it's going to be much better, because they have the wherewithal and the attention to do that kind of thing. I don't think this means Soldier's going to get more play higher up, because there's this thing called goats, and Soldier is not good against goats. He's just not. No true hit scans are really good against goats, at least that I've seen.
Well, except maybe the new hero, which we'll get into.
Yes. But, like, it's one of those things where, it's a nice change, but I don't think it's gonna make or break him at all. So it's almost, I don't want to say quality of life change almost, but it's so minuscule, I think, that it doesn't affect his standing one way or the other.
All right, well, moving on, we also have Torbjorn, and this will be the final one in regards to the balance updates, and you're taking a look at Molten Core, which, again, is his ultimate. Because we really don't even call it that. I mean, to be honest, we call it some more not safe for work things. But anyways, Molten Core, they have tweaked its damage, increasing it from 130 per second to 160 per second. And I have to say, it's been a while since, the Torbjorn rework has been put in place, and the more I play it, the more I dislike Molten Core. Like, I do not like his Claw ultimate for many reasons. For one, it is one of the easiest ultimates in the game to avoid, because you can either just move, for one, or, it is very easy to actually defense matrix it and eat it up, so, get sucked into the void. So, like, when it comes to situations where I find it, like, very useful, like, it's more in, like, that overtime situation, but, like, I feel like outside of that, it's just a hard ultimate to really get great value out of, unless you're just trying to keep someone directly off of, like, a small portion of the map. So, it could be considered more of a zone-in ultimate, but I'm just not seeing its full use and potential because of how much it is getting countered currently in the game, and, it having, 30 more damage per second isn't necessarily going to make a dent in regards to, how not viable it is currently, just knowing how many divas are running around and just being able to, just hold right click and then, it's all gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I boost the damage all you want. Like you said, it's the easiest ult to avoid. Like, take 2 steps to your right, all right, you avoided it. Like, it's really how it is. And with all the movement abilities in the game, it's so easy to bypass this. The only time, like you said, is if it comes down to overtime, you have it, and then you spray it all over the point just to either A, force them off, or B, do that little bit extra damage because they have to be on point. So it's Torbjorn rework makes him more interesting, does not make him viable. In my opinion, he's more viable than he used to be. But this ultimate is, everyone enjoyed it when it first came out, but it is not a viable ultimate at all. So, yeah, I don't know. This, I don't know how they make it viable. Maybe make it last longer.
Like, it's a thing of, like, okay, so there's 2 ways to actually use it. You either just shoot it straight, basically, and then it just lands wherever, or you can make it bounce off of the walls. So the problem with that is, if you are bouncing it off of surfaces, the time to travel, is also a lot slower, too, which doesn't help with the situation of, it getting eaten up either. So it's like, what do you really do? Do you just try to launch it directly in front of you? Like, do you try to suicide basically and just drop it wherever and, risk actually dying before the fight actually happens and, hope that maybe you evenly trade with someone? I don't think that's a good use of it either. So, I'm very conflicted with the new Torb. Across the board, like, I would say, like, his turret is doing a little bit less work, but Torbjorn in himself is actually doing a lot more work than what he was prior. His damage has been increased, his kill participation has gone up, which is good. So, he's better in that aspect, but the new Molten Core, not so well. But we do have one other change that we need to talk about that was not actually in the show notes, or the patch notes, but in regards to Overwatch League skins, they have added away skins on the PTR. So if you own the home skin for, we'll just say, we'll use Gladiators and Reinhardt as an example. If you have that skin, you now also have the away version of that skin. So the next time, they patch this onto live, you're going to have a lot more skins than what you did. So, you have to go through, mark all of them as seen, just do the mark all the scene on the hero gallery, so you don't have to individually do each hero, because that would take way too long in some instances. But we're getting more skins into the game, which I'm happy about. It's not something that we have to go out and necessarily buy, because that was going to be my biggest gripe if Blizzard's like, you know what, guys? We need to have more use for the Overwatch League tokens, so let's just add another set of skins, and that just would have been way too many unlockable skins via the token currency. So for them to just pair them together is definitely nice. But for me, like, I don't know where you sit with the away skins overall. I mean, they're, that white and, whatever the primary color is for the teams. Mm-hmm. There's really not a lot of situations where I would choose an away skin over one of the home variations of the skins, just because, to me, like, the white just doesn't look as good as the primary colors, and then just having the primary color as the accent, in this case, doesn't necessarily look all that great for all of the teams. Like, I feel like the Shanghai Dragons red looks pretty good with that white. And, maybe, black or, maybe blue. But outside of that, not a lot of them really stand out to me that make me feel like I absolutely need to use the away version of this skin. So I'm probably not really gonna touch them all that often. So I'll be sticking with the primary colors over the white ones overall.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it right on the head where you said the majority of people are not away skins fans. They have them out there for people to get, for people to use, but people are not fans. And I think that's why they gave it to us, because they knew if they put it in there as purchasable, no one would purchase it. Because they're not going to buy the colorblind version of it, almost like the white and the, for Soul Dynasty, what would it be? Just white with black, maybe a little gold. Like, I
honestly haven't looked at all of them.
Yeah, like, it's just, I'm like, all right, I'll just take the black and gold one that I have. That's way better. Like, I think they gave this to us as they wanted to get into the game, but they knew nobody would purchase it, so they tied it in a unique way, which is nice. And they also realized that there's plenty of new ways to spend the currency because you added a lot of teams. So all those skins are going to be coming into the game. So, yeah, I think they were fine with it. And, we'll talk about the skins for the new character, for the new teams here in a little bit. But, I'm not going to use any of them myself.
Yeah, Hippo says that Dynasty is white and gold, and some heroes look better in white. Yeah, that's true. And, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but some heroes look better in pink as well. But anyways, we gotta jump into this week's hot community topics, because there's been a lot of sauce, a lot of drama going on, especially on the competitive Overwatch side of things. So first up, I do want to make note, we are having a free weekend coming up. But it's not really a free weekend, it's like a free week, and I believe that was November 20th through the 26th. So, again, it's a great way for, friends to pick up the game, try it out, and then if they want to buy it, they can, and then it'll probably be half off the week after, as per usual, which, we've pretty much been accustomed to. But we also had, like, a Seagull video that was on YouTube earlier about the state of Overwatch, and, we have so much stuff to cover tonight, but next Wednesday, expect a pretty lengthy conversation about the overall state of the game, when it comes to, ultimates, metas, the way the game is being patched and balanced, map archetypes, things like that. There's a lot of good stuff that we can really dive into for quite some time there. But we gotta start by talking about Toronto, specifically Toronto Esports. So, again, this is important to iterate. Toronto Esports is an academy team. They are the affiliate team of Boston Uprising, and this is a team that has done fairly well in the Tier 2 scene and have been one of the mainstays for an extensive amount of time. But over the past week, basically, their owner has been throwing a tantrum over on social media, primarily on Twitter. So their owner, Wyan Pallet, he took to Twitter, And this basically all stemmed from him calling out Toronto Defiant for a show match between, Toronto Defiant, which is one of the new expansion teams, and Toronto Esports to prove who was the best team in Toronto, basically. And then, a lot of people were just, tweeting, that account because he was tweeting from the Toronto Esports account, like, why would anyone do this? Like, obviously, Defiant have other stuff going on right now. They would have nothing to gain from this. Mm-hmm. And, it would look bad on them if they were to, lose to an affiliate team. But the problem was, like, whenever someone would reply to this, the TO owner would basically, like, lash out at whoever was replying. And, it didn't matter if you were a team owner, if you were a professional player, or even if you were one of Toronto Esports fans in their fan base. Like, he was lashing out at just about everyone, going into people's DMs. And he was trying to spin this story like, well, Defiant are obviously scared. We basically already won this. And he was just being a total asshole for the most part. And by the way, like, I had a specific title name picked out for this episode that I wanted to put on Twitch, and it would not let me because of the name. But I'm still going to use it on iTunes, and we'll see if it gets flagged. But I don't care. I'm using it anyway. But, since this whole meltdown happened on Twitter, Blizzard basically went to Toronto Esports and informed them that they have 6 weeks to remove Toronto from their branding. Now, the reason given was that Toronto Defiant had purchased exclusive naming rights, and due to this move by Blizzard, their owner Ryan was just like, F this, we're out. Like, clearly they don't care about us. So Toronto Esports decided to leave Overwatch effective immediately ahead of Contenders Season 3, which is going to be kicking off here very soon, which we'll talk about. And so what does this mean for the players, right? Because that's going to be the next question asked by a lot of people. Well, for one, Boston Uprising is still going to retain ownership over the player and staff contracts, so the players are all safe, because that was my biggest concern. I was like, their owner completely had a freak out moment, and it's just like, well, like they just signed Fusions to a two-way contract. What's gonna happen to them? Like, I was so worried that these players were just gonna be kind of SOL going into what would be a new season of Contenders here momentarily. So Boston still has all of the players that have the staff contracts, as well as that Contenders North America slot. So they'll still be competing in this upcoming season, which is a huge sigh of relief for me, just because, you and I are definitely going to be covering Contenders North America on this podcast specifically. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't understand how you go from 0 to, 120, on a flip of a switch, basically, because this just happened out of nowhere. Like, I don't know if maybe the timeline was different. Maybe Blizzard came to Toronto Esports first with the possibility of them having to rebrand, because this would not be the first instance where that would have happened, because the same thing happened to another Tier 2 team in Skyfoxes. But no matter, what the timeline was, the whole, are you afraid? Clearly, Defiant wants nothing to do with us. That whole spin of the story was just complete BS, and it just made their owner look like a complete jackass. And at the end of the day, if you're going to be, that assertive in regards to, I'm trying to think how to describe this. If you're gonna act like that, that's really gonna make other esports titles want to distance themselves from you, knowing how quickly your mood can swing. It's probably the best way to describe it. It's not a good look on you or your organization, but at least the players and the staffs are still in good hands. Potentially. I mean, it is Boston after all, and we've heard kind of the behind the scenes stuff, so it might not be over yet in regards to their rough ride, but man, it's not been a good week for Toronto.
No, it really hasn't. And when I saw this, I'm like, this just reminds me of the kid who gets pissed off playing, pick up baseball, and it's like, screw this, I'm going home and I'm taking my ball with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else is like, all right, well, we have another ball. Like, that's what this is like. The owner's like, screw you, Blizzard, taking my team and leaving. And then all the players and coaches were like, yeah, you don't have our contracts. This team does. We're still going to be playing. You're just not going to be involved. Like, that's basically what it boiled down to, is we'll still all be playing as a team. You just won't be involved. So it's just, he acted like a real asshole.
Absolutely.
But like it was drama, but I think it was drama that was blown out of proportion, because once you realize it, it's just an esports president throwing a tantrum that really affects nothing and no one. Really, because Boston it's not like the Boston Uprising, Contenders team isn't going to be playing. They'll probably just play under a different name. Like, which they had to do anyway, because they got like a cease and desist from using Toronto. Like, and not like it mattered at all, because all these people were playing from, they're not sitting in Toronto all playing together. Like, they're playing from their homes. They're, it's not like it's LAN tournaments for Contenders. They made that abundantly clear that LAN tournaments are not to be done in Contenders. So, like, it's not a big deal. We'll probably forget about it in a week. It's almost comical just to see him throw a temper tantrum like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but when you look at the current landscape, like, a lot of people know, like, when it comes to the Overwatch League ecosystem, you're going to have city names, and Skyfoxes went through the same thing. They rebranded, they just dropped the city name, and as a team owner, like, you have to know, like, obviously the Overwatch League is the main focus right now, and with Toronto Esports in this situation, like, you are going to have people out there that maybe don't follow the esports scene as closely as, one of us or maybe some of our listeners, and there would be situations where someone would easily misunderstand a situation where they would believe that Toronto Esports was in some way affiliated with Toronto Defiant, when it's absolutely not. And then you don't want that to, like, stir up confusion, because actions like this from an owner from a team like Toronto Esports could negatively impact the Overwatch League franchise of Toronto Defiant, and they just cannot have that. And yes, Hippo, he did say Ashhole, which is going to be our new terminology for people that auto-lock Ash before you, according to our staff lounge that I made up earlier. And yes, he's 100% in Ashhole. But anyways, we'll talk a little bit more about Contenders and here in just a minute, because we got to preview the upcoming season, which is Season 3 of Overwatch Contenders. So, Contenders will be returning this weekend with the start of 3 different regions. We got Contenders China, we got Contenders Europe, as well as Contenders Australia. And then next weekend, we'll have the start of South America, Pacific, and Korea. Now, what does that mean for North America? Well, we still don't know. North America is completely missing from the Overwatch Contenders website. I was on over.gg earlier, and they have a start date of November 26th, but again, like, whether or not that's actually true, I have no idea. What we do know is that we do have a couple of changes for Season 3 of Contenders. We got the new Torb, including the recent changes, heroes like Pharah, McCree, 76, Orisa, and Brigitte. They also added Busan into the map pool. And then for our map pool, for control maps, we have Busan, Ilios, and Lijiang Tower. For hybrid, we have Hollywood and Dumbani. Assault being Hanamura and Horizon Lunar Colony, Escort being Dorado and Route 66, with the tiebreaker map being Nepal. So again, like, on this specific podcast, when it comes to contenders coverage, NA and EU will be our primary focus if we're doing analysis, things like that. But in regards to NA, we do know the teams that are joining the top 8. These were the teams that advanced through contenders trials. So you'll have Second Wind, the aforementioned Sky Foxes. We have Kungarna, who were formerly Phase 2. They went through a rebrand, so, Michael's back with Kungarna as the coach. So we'll see if he tries to lash out against any other staff members like he did in the past, especially if he gets replaced. And then we also have First Generation, who also were under a rebrand, formerly Goats, which I know you'll want to know, so you'll know which team to avoid. So they'll be joining Fusion University, XL2 Academy, Energy Esports, Team Envy, Gladiators Legion, last night's leftovers, who, we still don't know 100% if that's the Atlanta Academy, but I know Atlanta Academy is involved in contenders, so we can pretty much confirm that. I mean, they're not going to fit anywhere else, so they have to be. So yes, you will get plenty of sugar-free. You'll have whatever the new Boston Uprising Academy is going to be called, ex-Toronto Esports. And then we'll also have a Mayhem Academy team, which is more stacked than the Mayhem Season 1 Overwatch League team, which is interesting. So all in all, Ed, we still got, maybe a couple of weeks before NA kicks off. But this season of Contenders is shaping up to be a different look altogether when you think about it, because, right now we're still in the Overwatch League offseason signing period. And when you look at, a region like Korea, like, they've been, wiped clean for the most part. You'll have new looks from teams like Runaway. Condu Panthera was another team that got heavily poached. Element Mystic, O2. We'll also have our first look at Seoul Dynasty's Academy team, which is Gen G Esports. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like, we also have Kefri, who will be competing in Contender Specific. And he'll be on Global Esports, which is an all-Korean team. And that was the team that finished 4th in Pacific Trials in Season 3. We also have Manitin back with the Mayhem organization, and he's with their Academy team, so, he was released from the Overwatch League team and then signed by their affiliate team, so it's kind of a demotion, but not really, which we haven't had another instance of that, and he'll be tanking alongside, a former Outlaws main tank in Fact Fiction. So there's a lot of stuff kind of like that we're going to have to be thinking about when it comes to analysis, because for the most part, like, a lot of these teams are not going to be the same teams that we have been seeing, just because of how many call-ups and how many signings we have seen for Overwatch League Season 2. And it's really anyone's guess at this point how some of these new look teams are going to fare.
Yeah, and the thing is, we still don't know all the rosters. Like, we don't have announcements on all the rosters. Like, we don't know what's going on with Fusion University, who has been kind of the perennial best team. And for some stupid reason, like, they haven't been poached. Like, the team really hasn't been poached all that much. You have Gladiators Legion, who had probably, and we both kind of agreed on this, probably one of the best tanks in North American Contenders, not picked up by anybody in Panker. Like, so he's still on Gladiators Legion. I don't know if we've gotten an official announcement on the Legion team.
Yes, there was one earlier. They basically signed 2 new DPS. I don't have it offhand, so I can't tell you. But the DPS line was the only changes to that roster compared to Season 2. It looks like
they signed Dalton and Far as DPS players. So they still have Gods, Panker, Pooks, Rolf. Like, that's a good team. Like, we just don't know enough about the NA teams right now, because honestly, we don't know anything about the Overwatch League teams, like, fully. I mean, we still don't know anyone on Vancouver. We don't know who's going to replace DeFran. You know,
when it goes off the rails again, yeah.
Technically he's still on the, but really, if you're a betting man, he's not finishing the year. Like, it's just, you know, there's so much uncertainty going on in the Overwatch League. How can these teams who don't have a full team announced yet announce their contenders team? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all works out. And like you said, basically all of the Korean contender scene is basically just plucked dry. Like, you might recognize a few names, but basically it's like start from scratch, get a whole new team, and then you have the you know, the Sydney Bears from the Pacific, from the Australia contenders, and then everyone else.
That's a good breakdown of that region, because that's
it's like,
that's definitely
it's
true.
Sydney Drop Bears, you know, 11 other teams.
Yeah, basically.
And same with South. I forget their name, but isn't there just one team in South America that is just dominant?
Yeah, Brazil Gaming House.
Brazil Gaming, because their whole team was the Brazil Overwatch World Cup team. So it's that one team, and then everyone. So it really comes down to what happens with the NA scene for us. You know, I was looking and I couldn't find the Houston Outlaws contenders team. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's almost like they imploded.
Weird.
Yeah.
Awkward. I did take a look at the EU contenders too, because I know we'll be covering that on this show too. And there are some good ones. You know, I wonder if it was Team Giganti that I was looking at. I'm like, oh, Zappers isn't Zupe. I'm like, oh, it's the old Florida Mayhem meeting up together in EU contenders.
That Giganti roster is actually pretty stacked from what I saw.
It's pretty good. Like, I mean, they weren't great in the Overwatch League, but they're good for contenders. Like, they're good contenders players, so they probably do pretty good. And with the implosion of the, you know, first to worst of the British Hurricane, you know, like, and then I'm assuming Paris is going to have a contenders team. I would assume.
It's
like,
hard.
Nothing's been announced.
It's hard to say, but I will touch up on that in here in just a second, because we do know, like, they do have some pretty big changes that are coming to contenders for 2019. So, like, this is not going to be active in this current season. This will be the first season of the new year, basically. So basically, they're reducing the seasons from 3 to 2, and they're also increasing the length of the seasons. The teams are going to be reduced across all regions from 12 to 8, except for North America. So basically, with North America, they're going to be splitting that region into the East and the West. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that there are a lot of academy teams in North America, for one. And for the academy teams, all contenders academy teams not currently in contenders, so, you know, this will be the ones that currently aren't in Season 3, 2018, are going to be offered a spot in the 2019 Season 1. So, for the teams that aren't affiliated with the Overwatch League franchises, they're going to have to requalify again through contenders trials. But one of the biggest changes that they're introducing, which, you know, is a pretty big topic in itself, is that they are going to introduce soft region login to these rosters, so you can have a maximum of 3 non-resident players on each team. The rest must be residents of the respective region. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk about region locks, or whether or not you should have, like, an all-Korean NA team, things like that. And, you know, a lot of talk about, you know, homegrown talent, and there just being a general lack thereof in regards to that, just because everyone can pretty much come and go as they please. They can play wherever they want, doesn't matter what region. And this is definitely going to helps the ecosystem in the long run. I'm excited to see what some of these teams are going to do. But it definitely means, like, translators as a whole, like the value of translators, especially when it comes to esports, is going to skyrocket, because you're going to need to have someone there on your team to be able to help with that communication aspect, because we've seen how important that is, especially in the Overwatch League. So I'm excited about that. So, there's a lot of murmurs about, the state of Tier 2 as a whole, especially with, teams imploding like GG Esports Academy and Toronto Esports. But, I'm excited, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. But I'm really curious to see how the soft region lock is going to work out in regards to the longevity of the scene. But all in all, like, I just hope that maybe we get, maybe a little bit more of a break in between seasons, if they are going to be longer, just, for the player health aspect of competitive gaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only the player health aspect of it, is if they need more time in between the seasons, so teams can, the Overwatch League I keep wanting to call it the Overwatch League Network. No, the Overwatch League teams, pro teams, can have a chance to poach, have a chance to sign some of these players, because the seasons for contenders and the Overwatch League season do not cross over that well. Rightfully so. It's so we can get professional Overwatch play throughout the whole year, because this has been, from an Overwatch League perspective, the past 2 months have been boring as hell. Like, because there's been nothing. There's been the World Cup.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's, I mean, to me, that's not even professional Overwatch. It's like watching the 3-point contest at the All-Star game.
It's a spectacle of sorts, but it's not necessarily the highest level of competition, basically.
Yeah, I mean, US proved that. Oh, burn. But so I'm very excited to start back up. Although I am a little upset it's not the NA right now, because I'm not going to be staying up to watch EU live. But yeah, I'm excited. Just means we're getting that much closer to the big show.
Yep, at least we'll have something to watch for the next couple of months, which I'm excited about, because, like, we had, like, the Angry Cup that Angry Titans put on, and that was, like, a special event, and Angry Titans didn't actually win the tournament that they put on, which was fantastic. But, what, outside of that, there's just really not a whole lot of events being put on. We've had, like, show matches, which are all in good fun. I mean, I don't know how much of the California Cup you actually watched, but they were entertaining, but, like, it's not necessarily, like, the highest level of competition, considering that, yes, it was Overwatch League talent, but it was more like, it was more of a skirmish,
Yeah, there was nothing, like, there was no consequence if they lost. They were playing for funsies. They were playing for their fans, which is fine and all, but, like, I want to see something where you're playing for $250,000, $500,000. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing for double Sinatra's salary.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be playing for a dunce cap, basically.
Exactly. So, it's fine. It's here. We're gonna have contenders, and then when this season of contenders is over, or coming to a close, we'll have the Overwatch League start on Valentine's Day, which my girlfriend will be pissed about. So,
oh well.
We're gonna have to have an awkward conversation about that. So, but yeah, I can't wait. But let's move on. We'll stop about contenders. Let's talk about, because a bunch of new teams got announced. So,
well, we can't even do that yet, because we still have to talk about a certain individual.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so yes, the owner of Toronto Esports did in fact have a meltdown. He was not the only one here in this past week, because another pretty big sign-in, at least out of Atlanta, Also kind of uninstalled Overwatch during one of his streams, that being DeFran. So, DeFran basically, wasn't really enjoying the game. You know, people thought he was throwing it. He kind of was soft throwing during this stream, but basically, during the stream, he went onto Twitter. This was like after he'd uninstalled the game, and I'll read his tweet. He basically said, like, "The end. I hate the game. I thought I could love it again and have passion, but it's impossible. I always end up soft throwing. Contract ended. Overwatch uninstalled. McDonald's. Here I come." And, like, when you look at the time frame of this was, like, maybe, like, 10, 11 days after the unveiling of the Atlanta roster. So, like, in that moment, I was like, I honestly wasn't surprised. Like, this is DeFran being DeFran. And I was just like, oh, that didn't last long. But DeFran is still with Atlanta. He basically just noted, you know, sometimes, you know, I have these days, you know, I make some dumb mistakes, and in the future, he plans on focusing on his stream less, and also trying to make himself and his team better. You know, it's very reminiscent of another controversial figurehead of the community that was also a streamer / Overwatch League player that was part of the dumpster fire. You know, he's very similar to XQC in that regard. But when you look at a player like DeFran, and, you know, Hippo says, I don't get why Atlanta signed him. DeFran is a player that you would have to classify in the category of high risk, high reward. You know, this is a player that during his time in the game, in the pro scene, now granted, this was during kind of like the weekly phase of tournaments for, you know, Gosu gamers, things like that. He was on Selfless Gaming, who were that very brash, in-your-face, 110% aggression all the time, spawn camp you and push you into the oblivion, basically, type team that would just force their will on a lot of people. And DeFran, in regards to mechanical skill, especially, you know, on Tracer at the time, more recently on the hit scanner role, it's very hard to overlook his talent, even when you factor in his persona. But that being said, like, if you're talking to the average Overwatch viewer that has been following the scene, I don't think that any of this would have surprised you. Like, oh, DeFran ended up throwing on stream and now he's not feeling it. Like, that wouldn't surprise